Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Melanin Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Valarie Winn, and I want to talk to you about freedom. Jubilee Day is upon us, and it is time to celebrate. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, how could you not? Nevertheless, I am talking about Juneteenth, Black and African American Day of Freedom. Surely most of you knew that last year, Juneteenth became a federal holiday in the United States of America. Now, mainstream America has been aware of the date too. Truth be told, mainstream America needed to know about the importance of this day. However, in my home state of Texas, Juneteenth has been a state holiday since 1980. So I have to give Texas props for recognizing Juneteenth along with its birthplace in Galveston, Texas. Contrary to popular belief, many people knew about Juneteenth and many people already know about Juneteenth. Juneteenth has been celebrated in Black and African American communities across the nation for decades. To fully understand Juneteenth, we have to have knowledge of the American Civil War. The American Civil War was a 4-year battle between the Union, or what they call the North, or what we call the North, and the Confederacy, the South. The central cause of this war was the status of slavery, particularly the expansion of slavery into westward territories acquired as a result of the Louisiana Purchase and the Mexican-American War. The Civil War started on April 12th of 1861, with the Confederate firing the first shots after President Lincoln ordered a fleet to resupply Fort Sumter off of the shores of South Carolina. That action by the Confederacy firing artillery prompted a 4-year war which consisted of several battles between the Union and the Confederacy. It was after the Union's victory at the Battle of Antietam and on September 22nd of 1863 that President Abraham Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that as of January 1st of 1863, all enslaved people in the states currently engaged in rebellion against the Union shall be thenceforward and forever free. The rebellious states President Lincoln was speaking of were called the Confederate States of America and included the states of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. President Lincoln justified his decision for the Emancipation Proclamation as a wartime measure. It is important to mention that abolitionists, including Frederick Douglass, argued that black soldiers would help the North win the war and thought it would be a huge step towards equal rights. After Lincoln signed that bill on January 1st of 1863, some 186,000 black Civil War soldiers who were formerly enslaved and those who had escaped had joined the Union Army by the time the war ended in 1865, with about 38,000 of them losing their lives. The American Civil War ended when Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at the Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia on April 9, 1865. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect on January 1st of 1863, slavery in Texas was unaffected and enslaved black African people had not received the news of their freedom, but that was all about to change. On June 19, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger and his troops arrived in Galveston, Texas to share what is called General Order 3, which took control of the state and enforced the freedom of all enslaved Black African folks in the area. The General Order 3 announced, and I quote, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States," meaning the president, "all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts," meaning you can't just join the army, okay? "And that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere." Close quote. Juneteenth is short for June 19th. It marks the day when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865, 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and 2 months after General Lee surrendered to General Grant. Nevertheless, freedom arrived. It arrived. And on June 17th of 2021, which was last year, President Joseph R. Biden signed it into legislation it as a federal holiday. There are some people who saw the gesture of Biden as performative, and there are others like myself who sees it as a symbol of progress. There is an untapped power that comes with Juneteenth being recognized as a federal holiday. It is a power to draw people together, to educate them about the long and hard fight to end slavery. For as we know, there's something called the lost cause. And I'm going to talk about that on the next podcast. There's something called the lost cause that glorifies the Confederacy in their version, which is a falsehood of how slaves were treated during the Civil War, which prompted the Civil War. But anyway, nevertheless, the fight to end slavery was long and hard. The fight to end slavery did not stop with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. We know people are evil. Slave owners in Texas drew it out for 2.5 years in order to get free time from the enslaved people that they had, free time and free labor from them. 2.5 years. The slave owners felt like personhood was not a priority, and that some people today, even today, still have that same mindset. For instance, let's look at abortion rights. A woman's right to her privacy for her health care and a say about her health care. That's under attack. Let's look at the attack at the LGBTQ plus rights. And they're just their basic right to be treated as human, regardless of their sexual identification. People in leadership are devoid of empathy and devoid of compassion, and just devoid of treating people with dignity and decency. And let us not forget about what's going on with the social or the racial justice struggles we face in our lives daily in this country. For instance, like our voting rights and just the simple freedom to vote. Some of you know and understand they're trying to make it harder for us to vote, coming up with antiquated laws and gestures. Okay? But Juneteenth as a federal holiday is an opportunity for us to celebrate our freedom, how far we have come, and how to move forward. So, happy Juneteenth, everybody. This has been the realest homegirl, Valarie Winn, and I will talk to you all on the next podcast. Peace.